Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Playful Wise Woman Show. I am so excited you're here. My name is Cait, the Playful Wise Woman, and we have another fantastic episode in store for you. I want to spend some time talking about one of the things that I see both new and established business owners get really not caught up in, but get caught up in the lack of awareness of. Whether new or established, I see business owners get caught up in this idea that they need to be doing things a certain way. They need to be doing things the way other people are doing it. They need to be doing things because this is their belief that this is how business should be run, whatever the reason. And the reality is that we are going to need to show up and operate differently in our businesses based on the season of business that we are in. And there's some other variables in there as well. Seasons of life that we're in, all those pieces. And I think that this is a topic that doesn't get talked about enough. I'm starting to see it get talked about a little bit more in the parenting world, especially like moms, and like these reminders on social media that, you're in a current season of life with your child and it's going to shift as your child ages and develops and their personality develops and you grow and evolve as a parent. So it's being talked about a little bit more there. I would argue probably still not enough. And that's a very parallel experience in business. And part of the other thing that really complicates this, so I'm going to back up here a little bit. Part of the other thing that really complicates this is this idea that we kind of have to be in one camp or the other. These all or nothing mentalities that I'm seeing people get caught up in, people teaching and reinforcing on the internet, right? All action, all strategy, all planning, or we could look at that as people frame that as masculine energy if we're talking about energies. And then on the other extreme side of that, we have this concept of like, just flow and I'm gonna lay in my bed and make $1 million. And all of that kind of energy, more of like that feminine energy. And the reality is we need both, especially for my solo entrepreneurs out there who maybe are just starting to build teams or haven't built a team yet because they're brand new. The reality is you as the CEO, the founder, the visionary, you are going to have to operate in a space of both of those extremes and take pieces from them and live somewhere in the middle and move around. And what dictates which energy we actually want to be in, not should, but what dictates what energy we actually want to be in or our business needs us to be in will be very dependent on the season of business we're in. And there's a couple ways that we can determine this. We can look at our long-term goals. We can look at our short-term goals. And there's kind of a couple things that pop up there. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, this is the same struggle and the same decision that my newer business owners and my more established business owners need to walk through. So I'm going to start kind of with my brand new business owners and talk through a little bit of the pitfalls that I see them make when they get caught up in one of these all or nothing energies, or they get caught up in the shoulds, right? A lot of times I see my newer business owners get caught up in all the shiny, fancy things out there. What's my logo going to look like? What's the name of my business going to look like? What's the best platform for me to be on based on what I want to be doing someday? And they skip over some of those other pieces that we need to get really clear on. And so the season of business that they're in isn't about being able to spend all the money and invest in all the best things. The season that they're in is discovery, clarity, exploration, and hint, where we go in and out of that season often in business as we are evolving, pivoting, rebranding, our audience is evolving, whatever that looks like. So some of the ways that we can actually get really clear on what we want to prioritize or what we need to do is we get really clear on our why. And I have some really great guided activities that I love to work my clients through. It's part of my anchor framework and methodology. We always kick off with clarity on our why in our business, because then that becomes like our compass, our anchor point, right? What is our why for having the business? And then the other thing we get clear on is what are like big picture long-term goals, and those can change, and what are our short-term goals right now. So if we're brand new in business, we want to be bringing in revenue. We have no revenue coming in. Well, maybe instead of investing in the perfect platform that we don't even have people to be on yet, we get really clear and spend a lot of time on understanding the mindset of our ideal client. Who is our ideal client? Do we even know what that looks like right now? What kind of problems do they have? What transformations can I provide them? Right? Starting to work through some of that early information and spending time building out our network, building out our leads, building out our audiences, getting clear on where they are spending their time. That's where we want to put our energies into. So that's kind of a little bit more clear-cut example. We can take an example for the more established business owners who want to slow down, who want to spend more time with their kids, but they maybe are in this constant go, hustle, go, go, go. There are seasons for both of those. And no matter which of those two versions of the season we're in, we need to still learn to prioritize ourselves. We need to still learn to prioritize play and rest and nourishment and movement and all of those things. So for my more established business owner who has maybe just brought on a couple new team members, who has hit their recent revenue goals, but recognizing now in order to grow the business and in order to scale the business as well, two different things, they need to bring in a higher amount of revenue or cash flow now. And so now that established business owner who was wanting to slow down and rest maybe needs to go through a short-term period of putting a lot more work in, putting some more hours in, putting some energy and push and momentum behind selling, building authentic relationships, building authentic connections, all of that, right? So we shift out of one energy slightly and we move into this other energy of working, growing, doing, strategizing. And then as we get to that point, we can recognize and shift back out into, oh, okay, I've met these goals. I'm not clear what my next goals are yet. And I need the space to pause and be able to think bigger vision, bigger picture. Well, now my focus shifts because the business is running itself. My team is crushing it. Systems are in place and doing what they need to do. Leads are still coming in. We have a wait list. Now I can and need to step back, play more, rest more, get into a creative headspace more, because those are the things that are going to allow me to step into envisioning the next level, to receive the information, right? It opens up our brain in a different way when we're in that energy. So it's beginning to recognize the different seasons that our business is in. And that means that we are going to show up differently. We are going to do things differently than maybe our colleagues are doing, maybe the people on the internet are doing. There is no magic pill. There is no quick fix that is going to take care of anything. And if you have someone selling you on the internet saying, this is the way, this is the only way, run. Look elsewhere, look for support elsewhere, whatever that looks like, because that may have been the way for them in that particular season of their business for a whole lot of variables, right? And so I know listening to this, it almost feels like it's a little bit less clear than it was clear. But what we want to do is clear up for you and give you, again, some of those questions that you can ask yourself to try and get the clarity on what your focus is. Where are you right now? Where do you want to go? What's the big goal? And what's your why for having the business to anchor you and make sure you're making some of those decisions. And I'll share a little bit of a personal story because I've been going through a lot of this, and I've also been watching my clients and guiding and supporting and mentoring my clients through different phases of this. I am what I consider an established business owner. I've been in business for almost 15 years, have been full-time in business for over 3 years now, and have built a growing, successful business six figures and growing. And through that process this year especially, kind of the example I was giving you before, have gone through something similar where my business is intentionally and strategically expanding and growing. And it's interesting because I hit some revenue goals and I almost feel tighter than I did 6 to 8 months ago, because I also brought in more team strategically and very intentionally. So now not only did my revenue increase, but my expenditure increased in the business, right? So my profit margin has temporarily shrunk, again, very strategically. And now I've established new goals from a revenue standpoint. And I'm just using this as one example. Revenue is not the only deciding factor in where we want to go in our business. But now I've established new revenue goals heading into 2025. And that means I need to and want to shift my energy in my business and where I'm focusing and prioritizing my energy. And there are still things that I've deprioritized that aren't a big deal to me. I would love to redo my logo and do some intentional rebranding there around that with some of this growth and evolution. It's not a huge priority for me right now. My big priority is to continue to build authentic relationships with people, connect with more people than I ever have before, and explore and continue to connect with those people outside of just social media. Right? So I'm casting my net wider strategically, quantity, while still maintaining energy around the quality of what those relationships are, because that's one of my core values in my business, right? And it's meant a little bit of what I call quote unquote hustle on my end, right? There have been some periods in recent weeks where I've hopped into my own chat with my coach saying, hey, I'm really overwhelmed right now. And it's because I'm leaning into a different way of operating my business than I have been in the last year or two. The season of my business has shifted. I'm coming out of a season of messy action, exploration, trying new things. And to an extent, that's never really going to change for me because I know how effective it is, right? I also know that if I get too caught up in my head and don't take some sort of action, I will too, just like what I coach my clients on, get caught up in the whole paralysis by analysis, overthinking, all of that. And yet, how much of that I'm doing is lessening, and I'm shifting into a much more intentional and strategic phase of my business where I am building out and up at the same time. And I've crafted strategies around this, plans around this, all of that. And it's interesting reflecting, I was reflecting on this in my own coaching session, that a few years ago, and I've had 2 seasons in my business with my current coach. Very early on, being full-time in my business, I worked with her, took a break for a year or two, and now I'm working with her again. And I remember in some of our early work starting to talk about some of these things, and I just wasn't ready. And part of that was because the season my business was in, but part of that, and I haven't touched on this a ton yet, part of that was because of the season of life I was in. And the reality is, we are humans. Many of you all out there who are my audience members are parents, moms. So when I first went full-time all in on my business, was right after my maternity leave, and I left my then full-time job in higher ed. I call it my last stop in higher ed. I had a long career, almost 10-year career in higher ed in different capacities, from athletics to leadership education to teaching to all the things, administration. And not only am I trying to build and lift this business that I still wasn't even entirely sure what that would look like because of all of my multi-passionate experiences and because of all the expertises in different industries I had lived in, I just knew it would involve coaching. But I was also a new mom. And so the energy I was in and needed to be in and wanted to be in that season of life was slowing down. And that was almost a battle between that and my business at times. It was only a battle though because I was making it a battle, because in my head, I thought that it was one or the other. And now I can look back and recognize that we have different seasons in our businesses because of our lives, because of the needs of the business, whatever that looks like. And so I would love to encourage you to just kind of pause and think about what season of life you are in and what season of business you're in. What's your long-term goal? What's your short-term goals? Where are your gaps in your knowledge and your expertise? Does that mean spending more time learning, or does that mean spending time outsourcing? Right? And as you get better and better as a leader, a CEO, the visionary of your business and your life, as you get better and better at understanding yourself, self-reflecting, getting really aware and working through the process of understanding your needs, the business's needs, you will get more and more efficient at shifting and pivoting in your business from an energy standpoint, from a new offer standpoint, from an evolution standpoint, all of that. It always comes back to us as the leader and the person. If we have a high level of emotional intelligence, and only one piece of emotional intelligence is understanding yourself, one of four main pieces, if we are talking about the emotional intelligent quadrant. The second piece of that as it relates to ourselves, is being able to manage and regulate ourselves. And the more you can develop that skill of inquiry, inquisition, exploration around understanding yourself, your barriers, the stories you're telling, your biases, and the more you can learn to regulate and manage that, and then kind of do that same type of assessment on the business as it relates to you and your life, the quicker you are going to get clearer and more confident on what you want to focus on. And that's hard. It is hard, even for someone like myself, who I consider very emotionally intelligent, very self-aware. I still seek out support around these areas because we can get blinders on. I still invest in a mentor, even though my entire business is mentoring other people. There are seasons in my business where I don't, but currently, knowing what my big goals are, knowing what some of the things that I struggle with, mindset-wise, fears, old patterns, old stories, knowing the big, lofty, audacious, realistic, right there, attainable goals are, I invest in a mentor. I do the same thing for other people. And the way I frame and do a lot of my work is helping people bridge the gap between kind of those two extremes that I painted the picture of in the beginning, right? And we can give a couple different pairings, right? Between play and action, between mindset and strategy, between being and doing. I help people see and operate as that bridge so that people can learn to move back and forth, ebb and flow between those two extremes and everything in between that we need to do and be as business owners to meet those goals. It's never one or the other. It's never all or nothing. And the quicker you can begin to understand yourself, understand the season of life and the season of business you are in, the sooner we can get you support and help you map out what your priorities are, where to focus your energy first, and so on and so forth. And that's my work in the world. That's what I do. One of the quickest ways you can get clarity right now is actually, I just launched this the other day, so it will still be pretty fresh when this episode goes live in a week, but I just launched a year-end growth blueprint. And it's a free download that you can find right on my website, or you can drop me a message and I'll get you the link. And it's designed specifically for busy business owners. It's designed to take 30 minutes, roughly. You can certainly take as long as you want on it and spend more time in each section, but it was very intentionally crafted so that you could squeeze it in a pocket of window of busyness. And that blueprint, that guided activity workbook, you will go through and you are going to do some reflecting back and you are going to do some looking forward. And that's going to get you some clear action steps for January. first month of 2025, first month of quarter one of a new year. And then you can lean in for support in order to get supported on the mindset, in order to get supported on the fears, the overwhelm, the strategy, the longer term strategy, the bigger picture strategy, building out your marketing and your offer suite, adjusting your marketing and your offer suite, whatever that looks like. So if you are ready to kind of go through a very intentional guided practice around getting that clarity for yourself that I've just walked us through in this episode, I highly recommend hopping onto my website and grabbing that growth blueprint. It's a free download and I hope you enjoy. If you download it, please drop me a note on Instagram or on my website or on my email and just let me know what it was like for you and where you landed. And I would love to connect and support you in whatever way you need with that. And we can chat about that together. Thank you so much, everyone, for being on this wild journey of life and leadership and business with me. Remember, when we play, when we create, we make room for the action and the strategy that can come. When you prioritize you and your joy as the leader, you have the capacity to show up for your people and your business and meet those goals. Get to that big vision that you have. It is possible, but we start there.